Yeah, guess who just beat Pokemon Shield? A few weeks ago. That's right, it's me. Josh beat Sword, the lame one. But he did get the amped form of Toxtricity, the one I wanted. I got the stinking low-key. So we traded, because he's a good friend. But have you come to the realization that we now have a Pokemon world where low-key, hangry, and noise forms exist? Oof, what a timeline, am I right? Toxtricity is one of the coolest new designs in Pokemon. It's almost as if it's a real monster instead of literally my mom's penguin.
Nice.
Memes aside, this is actually a really interesting Pokemon, a pretty killer mon, first of all. And it's the first poison electric type that we have too. And I love punk rock. That's right, that's one of those secrets that ain't really that big of a secret, but it kinda is. It's good old innocent Lockstin over here. He's got a dark side. I am not a fake gamer girl. But clearly, as you can tell, I do this every single day. That's why it's so perfect. I definitely didn't ask for help. But anyway, this Pokemon loves punk rock on a whole other level. I mean, it has a new ability called punk rock, for crying out loud. With this ability, Toxtricity's sound-based moves deal more damage, and when it takes damage from sound-based moves, that damage is cut in half. I mean, that just makes sense. It's punk rock. Of course it's the ability of Toxtricity. It's basically the punk rock Pokemon. In fact, it's called the punk Pokemon in the dex, so even more sense. And I mean, just look at its dex entries. When this Pokemon sounds as if it's strumming a guitar, it's actually clawing at the protrusions on its chest to generate electricity, which sort of explains the whole extra damage with sound moves. It's basically got an instrument built into its body, an electric guitar, and in the case of low-key form, a bass. So of course they're gonna be better at sound stuff. Punk rockers are notorious for being extremely loud singers and rockers. So that all explains the more damage from sound-based moves, but what about the next part, the half damage from sound-based moves done to it? I mean, there are Pokemon that are soundproof, like Voltorb. You know, they don't got ears. But could you imagine? Soundproof prevents all damage and effects from sound-based moves. Pokemon with that ability really are soundproof, but with Punk Rock it only reduces the damage by half. So Toxtricity can still hear, but not very well. Oh no. They've got hearing damage. They actually can't hear all that well because of all the loud music they are always playing. And just look at this face. That just looks like the face of someone who has a hard time listening and has grown to the point of not even caring about that. Now, if you're a regular watcher of our videos, then you know what's up. That's right, this is a video about hearing loss. How exciting. Fun fact, listening to music too loud is one of the major causes of deafness in the world. And it's not just a single type of hearing loss. There are plenty of ways to lose it. Aging is the biggest one, of course. All of your bones and muscles and everything in your body gets worn down over time, and your ears are no different. But listening to loud music is right up beneath aging as the biggest cause. But interestingly, there are actually many ways for you to lose your hearing. I mean, just plugging your ears is technically a loss of hearing. Some people might lose an ear in an injury or a lust-fueled duel, and well, that really damages the hearing. Another type of hearing loss is sensorineural hearing loss. This happens when there is a problem with the inner ear, or the connection from the inner ear to the brain. This can happen when the tiny hair cells in the cochlea, I didn't look it up, I'm a punk. What do you want me to do? Read? Or, perpetuate punk stereotypes? But yeah, hair cells in the inner ear get damaged or destroyed. Depending on the specific loss, a sufferer may still hear most sounds, but they sound muffled. Or, if they are in a room that's mostly quiet, they can hear things all right, but if
some can only hear high-pitched sounds,
and some can only hear low-pitched sounds.
And of course, sensorineural hearing impairment is almost always permanent, and the ability to talk normally may also be affected. I mean, have you ever noticed your friends talking a lot louder than they normally do when they have headphones on versus after taking them off? It's the same idea, but always because they got headphones on their soul. And the last kind of hearing loss we'll go over today is also interesting. The ear and all of its bits will function just right, but the brain itself, they just don't know what the ears are telling it. Just like the freaking government, man. They hear us, but do they listen? Usually this is due to a tumor or just brain damage causing the impairment. But since Toxitricity is all about listening to punk rock music, well, clearly that's why it's got hearing loss. I mean, inner ear damage is not only possible when listening to loud music, but it happens all the time to almost everyone. You see, when you listen to things that are too loud, Wait, what even is too loud? What even is sound? It's airwaves, right? How could air hurt you? I get hit by air all the time. Well, it's all got to do with those tiny ear hairs and the eardrum in your inner ear. These tiny hairs all work together to vibrate in response to minute changes in air pressure, and they convert these wiggles into signals to send to the brain. You can almost think of it as a bunch of light switches all talking to your brain, and all of the ons and offs are different pieces of the code that is sound. It's pretty intense stuff when you think about it. Man, nature is so bad. As in good. Each hair cell has a small patch of stereocilia sticking out of the top of it, and sound makes the stereocilia rock back and forth. But if the sound is too loud, the stereocilia can be bent or broken, which will cause the hair cell to die, and it can no longer send sound signals to the brain. And for the most part, in humans, once these hair cells die, they never grow back. Thus, permanent hearing loss from loud sounds. The hair cells that detect higher frequencies are more fragile, so most people with hearing loss from loud sounds often have problems hearing high-pitched things like crickets or birds chirping. You may have even heard the fun fact that kids can hear higher-pitched noises compared to adults. And that's just because adults have lived long enough that the really sensitive high-frequency hairs break off just over the years. And another fun fact is that some public places have utilized this bit of info to make things like subways and restrooms emit high frequencies that adults can't hear, but are super annoying to youths, kids, teens, young adults, meaning they won't want to hang around anymore and do drugs, or whatever delinquent thing kids are into these days. As if we're all punks. But is that why Toxtricity is also poison type? Drugs? Punk rock? Stereotypically, anyway? But back to sounds. Tinnitus is a common symptom of hearing loss. It causes a high-pitched ringing to be often or even constantly be playing in your head. And it's caused by your broken high-frequency cells leaking incorrect information to the brain, creating this phantom ringing. Those tiny hair cells just won't stop rocking out even in the afterlife. Now just imagine all of the super loud concerts a full-on punk rocker would go to, especially a Pokemon punk rocker, blaring music loud enough to be heard over the screams of the crowd. And thus, those in the crowd have to scream even louder just to hear each other, which ultimately just adds to the overall volume and oomph. I'm sure everyone in the Pokemon world suffers some sort of tinnitus, though. I mean, it's a super common thing for returning soldiers to have after wartime, just from being around gunshots and explosions. And explosions happen constantly in the Pokemon world because of all the Pokemon battles, plus explodes existing. The EPA lists anything above 70 decibels, which is how we measure how loud something is, as possibly dangerous, and OSHA states that you are unallowed to work longer than 8 hours max in a 90 decibel environment, and only 15 minutes in an area at 115 decibels. For reference, 90 is like a loud cafeteria with no audio absorbing panels, or being near a motorcycle, and 115 is close to the noise of a sandblaster or an ambulance siren. So you know, things that are everywhere. Haha, joy. Man's trying to make us all deaf, so we can't hear their secrets. And in terms of music and concerts, well, they're all over the place. There's one British punk band, The Gallows, who claim that they play at 132 decibels. Why? I mean, heck, the fire alarms in your house and schools can be 145 decibels. That's enough to cause permanent hearing loss with just minutes of exposure. And with my cooking, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be deaf by 40. Tangential story time! Back in high school, I was talking with a bud when the fire drill started, and the fire alarm was maybe a foot from the back of his head because he was really tall. I've never seen someone's ears bleed before. Parents tried to sue, but it was thrown out because the fire alarms were all set at their legal minimum volume. Great. The man's trying to make us all deaf, so we can't hear their secrets. Back to Pokemon though, Toxtricity definitely has hearing damage. It just fits with its whole persona. and it perfectly explains its ability of ignoring half of the damage from sound-based moves. It just straight up can't hear them that well, so it still gets hurt from the attack, but it's not as effective compared to when hitting a Pokemon with good hearing. So, protect your hearing, guys. Wear ear protection when doing loud things or going to loud places. And maybe put a self-volume limiter on your music listening apparatuses. And it's okay to be a punk, but, maybe keep it straight edge. You hear? Straight edge for life. But what do you think about Toxtricity? Love it? Hate it? Think it's the new Lucario? Want it to be the new Lucario? And what topic should I talk about and try to fit a Pokemon into? Let me know down below, and until next time, never stop allowing your ears to use your...